Good afternoon. Welcome to the Chicago Money Show. We help you get informed, feel engaged, and have fun with your finances. I am your host, Bridget Sullivan Mermel. I own a family financial planning practice in Chicago. Our guest today has seen firsthand how women who are equipped with know-how to make smart financial choices have changed their lives. Jill Gianola has a new book out, Single Women and Money. Jill's a published author, teacher, speaker, and nationally known financial planner. And we're taking your calls. So call the number on the screen and ask your question, and Jill and I will answer it. A bit more on Jill. She's a founder of Gianola Financial Planning and has written 2 books and 2 different financial columns, and has been featured in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Kiplinger's, Barron's, and Money Magazine. We're taking your calls again, so call us at the number on the screen to ask your question. So welcome, Jill.
Thank you, Bridget. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is exciting.
Yeah, well, let's get right to it. So why isn't money unisex? It's not just because there's a delay in getting the Harriet Tubman 20 out.
Yeah, although that's disappointing. Yes, it's interesting because a lot of it is unisex. The stock market doesn't care who placed the order for 10 shares of Apple. I mean, man, woman, doesn't matter. When you're in the grocery store, it doesn't matter when you're paying your bill, whether you're a man or a woman. But I think what matters is how you get money and how you accumulate money and how long your money has to last. That's what's different between men and women.
Yeah, well, and why do you think the single women aren't given the attention in the financial industry that men generally get?
Yeah, I think there's a few reasons. Frankly, I think women in general don't get the attention that they should get in a lot of parts of industry, right, just between us. But single women in particular, I think there's this idea that the cure is marriage. So if you're a single woman and you're struggling financially, you have a way out. Just get married. Yeah. I mean, how hard can that be? And for a lot of women, they don't want to, or they've been recently widowed or divorced. That's really not an option. Mm-hmm. So I think that society thinks they kind of have the cure.
Right. And what do you think that the unique challenges that single women face?
Well, it's interesting because single women have the challenges that all women have. Number one, they earn less than men. So on average, 82 cents on the dollar. But if you're a Black woman, it's more like 65 cents on the dollar. And if you're Latina, it's more like 55%, 55 cents on the dollar. And if you translate that over a 40-year career, that's more than $1 million difference. Right. So no wonder we have trouble, paying our bills and saving and maybe paying for children's college. It's really difficult when you start out with $1 million less that you're going to accumulate. So that's number one. The second is women live longer than men. So you've got to plan for a longer time horizon, about 3 years more. That may not seem like a lot, but when you think how long it takes to accumulate 3 more years of living expenses, it's significant. And then finally, single women are doing it with one income. Right. So there's no backup. If they are disabled or are sick or get laid off, they can fall into a pretty deep financial hole very quickly.
Yeah. Well, you said that the pandemic has hit women especially hard. And you familiarized me with the term C-session.
Yeah.
I think some of our viewers will really relate. Why don't you tell me more?
Sure. Yeah, that was, these pundits come up with these clever words. So, it's not a recession, it's a she-session. Yeah. But it is true. They said within the first few weeks of the pandemic, 3.5 million women either lost their jobs or left the workplace because they just couldn't manage with children or whatever. Right. So it definitely hit them harder. And then when you look at single parents, for example, of which most of them are single women, let's face it, they did a survey and said they were twice as likely to have trouble paying bills utilities, food, that, and 3 times more difficulty in paying childcare than a dual couple, dual earners. So there's no doubt the COVID recession pandemic hit single women a lot harder. They were in a more fragile position to start with, so something like that just knocks them right off their path.
Right. And now we're going to talk yet another challenge that women face. Tell me about imposter syndrome, another pundit-created word, but I think a lot of people can relate to this.
Yes, this is such a great question. I love this question because it's one of those where it's kind of flipped on its head a bit over the last few years. So this came up in the 70s, 1970s. Researchers noticed that a lot of women, and frankly, high-achieving women, were often just kind of almost embarrassed, or didn't think that they were living up to their potential, or somehow what they were doing wasn't good enough. They were frauds, they were imposters. And so they said, oh yes, this is so typical of women because they lack confidence, and it was all on our shoulders, right? Well, recently they've done some research and said, well, guess what? These women were working in a fairly toxic environment. There was racism, there was gender bias. I mean, let's give the women a break here. And several researchers, including at Harvard, have said it's the managers who have to really change their tune and the way they work in the workplace, and encourage people to blossom and to be their own, and not lay it on women's shoulders. So I think the imposter syndrome is really the imposter of the managers, less than the women themselves. They were working as hard. I mean, obviously, if you don't feel welcome, you're not going to feel like you belong.
Right. I seem to recall a research study that I saw that said actually imposter syndrome was kind of spread amongst both men and men, but that women were more likely to cop to it. So they would admit it. They would say, I don't feel, confident. Whereas men, and this will be something we talk about in a second, men are more likely to fake it until they make it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, they say confidence does not equal competence.
Right. So
even if you're confident, it doesn't mean you know what you're doing. Right. And somehow with women, if we're not confident, we think we're incompetent.
Right. So this gets to jobs. So let's talk about how this plays out with jobs, particularly right now, a lot of people are applying for jobs, and they're negotiating for new jobs. Or they might have some more leverage to negotiate salary. So let's talk about that topic.
Yes, and it's been interesting because I think, frankly, some of the younger women are getting this more than certainly my generation. And so some things that seem relatively simple, for example, don't disclose what you're making now when you're applying for a new job. It's irrelevant what you're making now.
Okay, give me a little bit of what words do you say?
So you basically, when they ask you and say, so what are you expecting, or what are you making now? Say, let's talk about what the job pays. I'm applying for this job, and that's the job that I want to talk about compensation.
Right.
I assume you'll be fair, and take it from there. Many places are pushing for more transparency in salary, so when you're applying what the minimum and maximum salaries are, or in the workplace. And it's tough going. New York City Council had the law all set, ready to pass last month, and it got derailed. Its industry doesn't like it. They don't want to disclose salaries because it's going to only highlight the gender bias.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So
it's there's things you can do, but it's going to be hard.
Yeah, and another guest that I had on the show, recommendedsalary.com, to find out what people are making at your job, or specific industry. I know our industry has specific studies that you can look at that help you figure out, okay, what should people be making?
Yeah, yep. And that all of those are going to help, but it's going to take a while. The secrecy has been what has fueled this gender bias. Frankly.
Well, and honestly, in my lifetime, it has gotten better. So it's 82% now, and we're quite a bit worse for minorities. But it used to be 10%, 72, it was like even more pathetic. Right. Let's put it, it is even more pathetic, Anyway.
Right. Right. But I was trying to calculate how old I would be by the time it got to 100% based on that path. It's like, I'll be hundreds of years old.
Right. Progress is slow.
Not in my lifetime.
So let's switch gears here. Because we've been talking about the challenges that women face. And I really want to switch gears to say, hey, women are better at money in a lot of important ways. So the research indicates that women are better. They approach investing differently than men, and they're better. So why don't you tell me more about that?
Sure. Yeah, I love this story because it's a little counterintuitive to what you hear, because you do hear a lot about how women are too conservative when they invest, and there is some of that. No doubt about it. Some women, they stick to the CDs and the bank accounts because that's what they're comfortable with. But once women get in the game, so to speak, and start investing, they actually do better. There was a famous study, two professors, there was anecdotal evidence. They were saying, women in investment clubs were doing better than men's investment clubs. Mm-hmm. But two professors did a rigorous academic study, and they found out that women tend to make about 1% more in their investments. Single women do even better, 1.4% more. That doesn't sound like a lot.
That's a lot.
over 30 years, you're talking about 40% more in your nest egg than the typical male investor. So they obviously they were academicians. They wanted to find out why. And they found out that men tend to be overconfident, and they tend to trade a lot. They go in and out, in and out, in and out.
So
that increases their costs.
Cool. We've got a caller. So caller, can you please tell us your first name and the neighborhood you are calling from, and then proceed with your question.
Art.
Hey.
And I'm calling in regards to watching the show in regards to my daughter. She is just graduating college now, and she's going to be entangled in some student debt for a while. We're going to try to help her out as much as possible. I was just wondering, what kind of tips that can you guys give her? Starting her life, her new career, and also having a little bit of debt, and maybe things she can start planning for, even small tips.
That's awesome, because we were just going to move into that question anyway. So, Jill, what say you?
Yeah, I would really encourage her to go after the kinds of jobs that really sing to her, really make her feel like this is what I would like to do, even though it may not be what she does the rest of her life. I mean, my first job was not as a financial planner, and here I am, but not to worry quite as much about the student loans. You can get the student loans. You can get what are called income-based payment schedules. So even if you're not making a ton of money, at least you're chipping away at the student loans. So I would look at salary, obviously, but salary may not be the only thing that she looks at. Look at what she would really like to do. What kind of people would she like to work with? Where would she like to be? Look at all of those factors as well.
Yeah, and we had a whole show on student loans starting Patty Hughes. So if you check out ChicagoMoneyShow.com, you can take a look at that tape. Okay, so we are going to do a lightning round. At least it's going to be lightning for me. You can go on. And I've got 2-word life situations. Okay? I'm going to say the 2 words. Then you'll explain in more than 2 words the number one thing that women in this situation should focus on. Okay, ready?
I am.
All right. Single mom.
Okay, so a single mom, we talk about your own safety net, but now a single mom has to worry about a safety net for her children. So in addition to having disability insurance for yourself, make sure you have life insurance. So if something happened to you, your children would be taken care of. Make sure you name a guardian and a trustee for the money. So that someone would manage the money and take care of them if something happened to you. So get a real strong safety net in place for your children.
I had a question from a viewer also on this, who is a single mom, and her question was, how do I save for retirement on my limited budget?
Uh-huh. And it's a single mom?
Yeah, she was a single mom.
Yeah. So what I suggest is look for the type of investments that I call dual or triple use that could be used for different things. I love Roth IRAs. Because you put the money in, you don't get a tax benefit up front, but you are allowed to take out the money you put in anytime you like for any reason. So even though it is your part of your retirement account, if you ran into a jam, an emergency, medical emergency, for example, you could pull money out. So it's both a retirement account and an emergency fund. You need your money to work super hard for you. So, something that can fulfill two goals at once is really valuable.
Oh, makes sense. Okay. Our next lightning round question, no kids.
So yes, so no kids. Am I allowed to say two things?
Yeah.
One, I would say estate planning documents are important for no kids as well. If you're a single woman, you have got to specify who would take over your finances or your health care if you were unable to do so. Otherwise, the state's going to choose, and that may not be whom you want.
Right.
With a married couple, you assume it's going to be the spouse.
Yeah.
But with a single person, could be anybody, and you don't know. The other thing I would say is pay attention to your housing costs. Single women spend between 45 and 55% of their budget on housing.
Whoa.
It's a big chunk.
Yeah.
Well, because, a one-bedroom apartment that a couple is sharing is the same one-bedroom apartment that the single woman has to pay on her own.
Well, and if it's have kids, then you have that too. Yeah. Okay.
Exactly.
Next lightning round question, divorced woman.
So a divorced woman, here you are, now you get to choose how you spend your money. You don't have to negotiate it with your spouse anymore. So develop a workable spending plan that honors those types of spending that really are important to you. If you like to travel, but a late model car isn't so important, or eating out at fancy restaurants is important, put more money into travel. This is your chance to really align your spending with what's important to you.
Interesting. And you told me an interesting factoid about the happiness factor with divorced women and money.
Yeah. Apparently, divorced women are a lot happier than even women who have never been married.
Right.
Yeah. It's very interesting because they feel like, finally, I get to make the decisions. I'm in control, which is a double-edged sword. That can be kind of scary too. But once you start and get some experience, talk to some friends, talk to other divorced women. You start to realize, I can do this.
Yeah. Next one, widow.
Yeah. So with a widow, I would suggest find out what your options are for Social Security, because widows have more choices than divorced women or single women, or even married women, frankly. So find out what your choice, because you may be able to start receiving your benefits and then switch over to your deceased spouses, or vice versa.
Very cute.
And they don't, and you have to really do your homework. Go on the Social Security website, which is ssa.gov, and look for, you can Google, women or spousal benefits. They did a study of how many widows lost out on real tens of thousands of dollars because they were never told that they had some choices about how to claim Social Security. And one other quick factoid is, Social Security was supposed to be one piece of your retirement picture. And for more than half of retired single women, Social Security is 90% of their retirement income.
Yeah.
And the average check is $1,400. So Social Security plays a huge role. So make sure you're getting every penny you're entitled to.
Right. And, I put that widow in that order because our next one is going to be empty nest. But I think there's just between you and me, and I want to move on, there's a misperception that widows are old. But the average age of widowhood is like 56, 57, like when people actually spot. Anyway, empty nest.
But that's important, Bridget.
Okay.
Yeah, because a widow can start claiming Social Security as early as 60, which is earlier than anyone else.
Okay.
So you may not have to wait quite as long.
Okay. Empty nest. Your most important piece of advice, single women.
Right. So if you are now an empty nester, your budget should be a lot easier to manage because kids are expensive, and if your kids are launched, then you should be able to find some extra dollars in your budget. So put that into your retirement. If you were saving 10%, bump it up to 15%. If you were saving 15, try and bump it up to 20. Just funnel that money right in. Otherwise, you're going to get used to spending the extra money, and it's going to be harder to get to your retirement goals.
Okay, next one is before retirement.
Yeah. So before retirement can be a big, it could be all kinds of
I was thinking more
phases.
just like pre-retirement, 5 years. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I love the many of the calculators that are on the web. I think that they really do a good job of giving you an idea of, you're here, you'd like to be here in retirement. Are you on track? What do you have to do? A lot of them have kind of levers that you can move things around if you're not quite there. Schwab has them, Vanguard has them, T. Rowe Price, Fidelity, all of the big mutual fund companies and all have them. So just Google them, grab one of them, they're free. Plug in some of your numbers. How much have you saved? How much do you think you can save? When would you like to retire? How much would you like to spend in retirement? And it will tell you, these calculators will tell you, yes, your goals are reasonable, or not quite going to make it. Here's the shortfall. And then think about ways that you can plug that shortfall. Obviously, you can work longer. Maybe you'll switch to a part-time job in retirement. Maybe you can move to a less expensive part of the country. But if you know that a few years ahead of retirement, it won't take you by surprise.
Okay, now we have a call. Okay, caller, give us your first name and your neighborhood you're calling from, and then go ahead with your question.
All right. Hi. My name's Andrea. I'm calling from Humboldt Park, and I'm in my 30s. I don't have really any disposable income, but I am trying to save, and I'm saving mostly to do a down payment on a house. And I just wonder, is that should I put all my small savings into that one basket, or should I be kind of sprinkling money into different things?
It's a great question. Great question. Jill, what say you?
Well, I'll go back to my Roth IRA idea, because now you can have triple use for a Roth IRA. If you can set up a Roth IRA, you are working, so you're eligible to do that. And you can set it up with a mutual fund company. You can even set it up with a local bank just to get started, and funnel as much money as you can in that. Even though it's ostensibly a retirement account, you can take money out to pay the down payment on your first home.
With no penalty, right.
It starts without penalty, correct, without penalty, without taxes. And so it grows faster because it's growing tax-free than if you just put it in a savings account.
And if some situation changes, if your life situation changes, then you've got it for retirement. So that's what,
absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and,
or an emergency fund if you need it.
Yeah, I was really happy that you brought up this question, Andrea, too, because another factoid that Jill told me is that more single women buy houses.
That's right.
So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah, which I find interesting.
Yeah. Which is actually kind of an interesting trend, as you say, because it's been shown that it's a little easier to grow wealth if you own your own home. Right. It comes with all the headaches of the repairs and all of that, but over time, homes do increase in value. And my recommendation, Andrea, is put a down payment down, but then get a 30-year fixed mortgage. That will give you the smallest payment. And who cares 30 years? I mean, it doesn't matter if you never pay it off. In the meantime, you'll be able to live in this house and have extra money to do other things.
Okay.
So make your house payment as small as possible.
Great. Now, last of the lightning questions is in retirement.
Okay. So in retirement, this is, again, for single women, circle back to housing. Because it's such a huge part of your budget, look at retirement communities, look at maybe some more innovative approaches. There are more and more women who are banding together, buying a house together, maybe getting someone to help them out. Someone who does the cleaning and cooking would be my my ideal house. And it turns out to be a lot less expensive and frankly, a lot more convivial. than just trying to live on your own. I think it's a great goal to try and live on your own as long as you can, if that's what you'd like to do. But frankly, chances are it's going to come to a point where you're not going to be able to. So think about what other kinds of housing arrangements you could do that would make it so that you wouldn't be on your own or depending on strangers to help you out.
And along these lines, I got a viewer question, and she asked, I'm 5 to 10 years from retirement, and I'm thinking about becoming a snowbird. What should I consider?
You know, I'm looking outside in Ohio, and it's like 70 and sunny. Who would ever
we
want to leave Ohio?
We've got warmer weather on the way. It's like 90 here, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that icy cold that's coming.
No, it's warm.
Yeah. My first suggestion is to try it out for a few years. You know, if you have an idea of a place you think you might want to live during the winter, go there and spend 1, 2, 3 months, rent an apartment, rent a place to make sure that's really where you want, because it's a big commitment if you're going to buy a place. If you think maybe you don't buy and you just want to rent, that's fine. But a lot of people do like to buy a place. And so make sure that's exactly where you want to be, because chances are, at least with most of my clients, if they have a house, say in Chicago, and a house in Florida, they don't have a lot extra money for other travel. So they better like their snowbird location a lot.
Okay, makes sense.
So try it out.
Makes a lot of sense. Okay, another question I have that you speak about directly in your book is, what about during hard times? Let's talk about specific resources you have for women when they're at one of their financial low points.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we have a whole chapter on this because, you know, life doesn't follow a smooth path all the time. And again, if you're relying on only your income, it doesn't take much to derail your plan. So we give specific advice about how to get legal advice free or discounted, how to get education money if you're going to go back to school and get a different degree, where you can go to apply for scholarships, and even resources about help with housing, with utilities, you know, if you're really in you know, you've lost your job and you're in a bad situation. So we've listed a ton of resources in that chapter.
Great. Yeah. And you know what? I looked before the show, and it is actually available at the Chicago Public Library. Again, it's called Single Women and Money. It's pretty easy. Yeah. And the author is Jill Gianola. So what about one more quick question? All right. We've got about 30 seconds left. Tips for buying a car.
Oh, yeah. So be prepared. Do your research. Go on the web. Print out a bunch of stuff about the kind of car you're looking at, the price, what you can expect. Put it in a folder and be equipped. Go into that wherever it is, dealer, even if you're doing it online. But it's especially effective if you're working with a dealer. And just open it up and show them, look, I've done all this research. I know what this car should cost. It's great. It kind of flips the table. You kind of intimidate them rather than having them intimidate you. So do your homework.
Great. So Jill Gianola, I want to thank you so much for being my guest today.
It was my pleasure. This was a lot of fun. It just flew by.
I know, really. My name is Bridget Sullivan-Mermel, and I own the fee-only financial planning firm. Check out the show's website at chicagomoneyshow.com. There you can see our previous episodes as well as sign up for our newsletter. Then you can get a heads up before our upcoming shows. And if you've got questions on this episode or for future episodes, please email us at ask@chicagomoneyshow.com. Thanks for watching.